Okay, I feel like before we go further, we should do some chazara. Is it okay to do chazara? Huh? What?
It's always good.
Okay, so let's go back actually to Friedrich Rebbe's Mamer.
Confused people.
Friedrich Rebbe's Mamer and Osid Gimel. It's really the only way to understand what we learned yesterday, what the Rebbe is saying, is by looking back at the ice. After all, the Rebbe's Mamer is an explanation on what the Friedrich Rebbe says. Okay, I'm going to start again from the beginning. V'hinei, Osid Gimel. V'hinei ma'ashayim lamata din tachlis. What's the pshat? In lamata din tachlis koi ala gilui v'espashtos. It refers to the revelation. So here the Friedrich Rebbe uses two expressions, gilui and espashtos. The Rebbe in the Mamer talks about these two lashonos, gilui and espashtos. In Chassidus, when it says the term gilui and espashtos, it comes together, it means the same thing. Friedrich Rebbe is mentioning these both expressions here. Shehu b'b'chinas espashtos, b'b'chinas ein soif, ein shir, b'li gvul mamish, ad lamata mata, that the revelation is revealed and it extends further and further, lower and lower. B'madreges hayesa achrenis v'hayesa tachtenis. V'zeu oir ein soif lamata ad in tachlis. Shehispashtos ha'oir hu b'b'chinas ein soif b'li gvul klal ad madrege hayesa mata mata. That's the meaning of oir ein soif lamata ad in tachlis. So now, the first point, just to clarify, according to what the Rebbe explained in the Mamer, what's the Friedrich Rebbe trying to say here? We're not talking about the metzius of the world that's created through Ein Sof, but we're talking about Ein Sof itself. This is the power and the shvach. The Rebbe uses the term shvach. This is the praise of Ein Sof itself, that it is mispashet ad Ein Sof until mata mata, and that wherever it is, it remains Ein Sof. Okay, but now here the Friedrich Rebbe continues to explain what is mata mata. When it says lamata ad in tachlis, what's considered to be mata mata? Hinei oilamisa ein sof shalifnei atzimtzum. Those worlds of ein sof that exist before tzimtzum, v'olam atzilos, and the world of atzilos, which is after tzimtzum. The shah meir ha'erin sof begilui. The fact that erin sof is revealed there, that's not a pella. Harehem kelim lo erin sof. They are kelim for ein sof. Why? Lihiyois the gama kelim areim lakus mamish. When he says lihiyois, is referring to atzilos, because in atzilos even the kelim are lakus mamish. And now here the Friedrich Rebbe says 2 points. V'im kain, if in the world of atzilos even the kelim are lakus, ein pele klal ha'orein soif meir sham begilui. Number one, it's not considered to be unusual. It's not a wonder that the orein soif could be revealed there. V'chein ein pele ma'ashem yechelam lekabel orein soif hagolui. And it's also not a wonder the fact that the world in Natzilos is able to be mekabel, to be a recipient of this orein soif. So these two nyonim, the Rebbe focuses on them. What's the difference between saying that orein soif is revealed there, or saying that the world is able to be mekabelit? That has to be explained. What's an afgemina? So b'pashtus, you would think the difference is very simple. The mashal that Chassidus always speaks about, when you have revelation, you could have a revelation of the light of the sun. The light of the sun shines all over the entire world, but the world is not makabel that light. Right? It's a light that shines b'derech makif. B'derech makif, meaning that it shines in wherever it comes to, but it doesn't change the nature of the place that it shines on. Whichever place the sun reaches to, the place itself remains unchanged. It remains a dark place. As long as the sun comes and it shines, it's a koyach mi bachutz. It's an external power, the light of the sun, and it shines there, so it's light. When the sun leaves, look at the place, what's going on in the place? It's the same as it was before. That's one type of gilui. Then you have the gilui, which is both from pnimi, hashpa pnimis. What's hashpa pnimis? Like the hashpa of a Rav to a Talmud. When a Rav teaches a Talmud, so what happens? It's not that the Rav is shining a light into the head of the Talmud. The Rav is teaching. He's teaching the Talmud, and the Talmud has seichel, and he's teaching him a dvar seichel, a concept, intellectual idea, and the Talmud with his seichel is able to be makabel this. Even when the Rav walks away, the Talmud has it. You can't just turn off the light and the Talmud has it. The Talmud has it b'pnimis. It's a different type of hashpah. The Talmud himself is makabel this. That's the pshat, makabel, the gilui, right? But the emes is that's not the pshat makabel gilui. Chassidus it says, and a chanami. There's two different types of hashpahs. There's a hashpah b'derech makif, and there's a hashpah in a way of pnimis, b'derech pnimi. But both of these ashpas doesn't mean that there was a makabel here that changed. Why? Because even this student that was makabel the gili b'pnimiyus, but what was he makabel b'pnimiyus? The ideas of the teacher. The student himself, his own thinking, his own way of approaching things hasn't changed. When the Rav walks away, and now the student will open up another piece of Gemara or another subject and try to learn in the same way that the Rav taught him, he won't be able to. On his own, he can't be mechadish himself such a kind of way of thinking. So it's the words of the Rav that are now in his seichel. And a chanami, it's not in his seichel b'derech makif. It's in his seichel b'ifn pnimi. It becomes something that he understands, and therefore he could explain and say over. Like I mentioned yesterday, the lashon that it says in Pirkei Yav is boyer sud she'einem ab b'tippeh, a student that doesn't lose a drop and is able to repeat back what the Rav said with all of its details. But nevertheless, it's not his. So this is also not considered to be a makabel. What is the idea of makabel, that you're a keli, that you're a makabel? Makabel means it becomes yours in the sense that this now identifies you, that now this is the way you think. If you're going to come to approach a subject, so now because you learned from the Rav this type of approach, you will now approach things and understand in the same way. Or the lashon that I mentioned yesterday that it says in Pirkei Yav is that a person can be a mayin amizgaber. He learns from his teacher, but he received from his teacher a derech how to learn, and therefore he himself becomes a mayin amizgaber, that he himself could now be machadish the same ideas or similar ideas to what his Rav said. That's the real concept of makabel. In other words, the idea of makabel is defining the mitzias of the Talmud himself, not defining the oyer. The oyer could be a oyer makif or oyer pnimi. That's all the gilui, malmayla lamata. And then there is the makabel, meaning that what is the mitzias of the makabel himself? How does he understand? So here, what the Rebbe is saying is that when it comes to the world of Atzilus, both of these pratim, whether you speak about the fact that the revelation of Atzilus is there, the gilui of Atzilus, whether you speak about the fact that they're makabel this gili in the world of Atzilus, both of them are not considered to be a pella, because it's all elokos. The world of Atzilus is all elokos. It's a place where godliness is revealed. It's all the achtas of the Eibishter there, including the kalim. The kalim which are going to receive the Eiris are also, it's all elokos, so there's no pella. Okay, that's one important point of here, this negeh. Now, let's see the contrast of what does the Friedrich Rebbe say? Avol olam is biyah. However, when it comes to the worlds of biyah, the lower worlds, hareheim b'chinas mata. So they are considered to be mata. Olam is biyah are not elokos. It's a creation. Okay, and we'll learn later in the Rebbe's Mamer. The Rebbe explains more in detail why olam is biyah are called mata. The Rebbe will explain that the olam is biyah are nifra, they're separated. Right? As the Rebbe here, the Friedrich Rebbe here is meramas v'kitzi. The kelim datzilos and kegufel and ishmasa. It's like a body and a soul. The body is not separated from the soul. The body becomes alive through the soul. The body itself is alive. Masha'enkein biyah heim b'chinas levushim. Biyah is called levushim, and he brings the lashon that it says in Pasach Eliyahu that it's called levushim. What is levushim? A person wears a garment. The garment is separated from the person himself. The garment doesn't become alive from the soul, from the nefesh, like the body does. So it's nifrad. Okay, now the question is, when the Friedrich Rebbe says, Aval olam is biyah harem b'chinas mata, or afterwards he says again, Masha'ein ken biyah hem b'chinas levushim. So over here, it is a pella. The fact that you have the revelation of Eir and Seif in the worlds of biyah, that is a pella. But what is the Friedrich Rebbe trying to say here? If you learn the Hamshach of the Indian, there's two ways how you could learn what the Friedrich Rebbe is saying. Either the Friedrich Rebbe is just going back to what it said in the beginning, that you have the Gilui and the Hispashtus of the Eibishter, that's Ein Seif and Ein Shir. And in Olam is biyah, that's the mata mata. That's the lowest level where you have that revelation. And that's a huge chiddush. But the Rebbe, when he spoke about the world of Atzilus, over there, the Friedrich Rebbe negated that in Atzilus there's two pratim. There is the Gilui and there's the Makabel the Gilui, right? Like I explained before, there's two pratim. When the Friedrich Rebbe says, Masha'en kin biyah heim b'chinas levushim, is he trying to say that in biyah, both of these aspects are there, and you have both of these pellahs in a biyah. Side the pellah that you have the gilui of Eir and Seif in biyah, and side the pellah that you have the makabel of that gilui, that olam is biyah could be makabel that gilui as well. That's what you could say. Or maybe no. Friedrich Rebbe never says such a thing beferish. It doesn't say that in the worlds of Biyah there's the revelation and the makabel, both of these aspects. When it comes to the world of Atzilus, and he's trying to explain to you that there's no aspect of the world of Atzilus where there's going to be a Pella. So over there he spells out both of these details. Not the Gilui is a Pella, and not the fact that the world of Atzilus can be makabel is a Pella. But then when it comes to the worlds of Biyah, Masha'en Ken Biyah, who says that in the worlds of Biyah, the Pella is also both of these Pellas, these two things that he negated, that is not a Pella in the world of Atzilus, maybe in the worlds of Biyah, Lavdafka, both of them, the Pella is in both aspects, side the Gilui and side to be Makabel. So that's the Chiddush that the Rebbe says in the Mamer, that when the Friedrich Rebbe writes here, Masha'en Ken Biyah, or the Lashon Aval Olam is Biyah, Hareim B'chinas Mata, this that he brought up before, these two things that are not a Pella and Atzilus, he's not just saying it to negate what's in Atzilus, but when he says the positive, that in Biyah, we are referring to Biyah, that over there the Pella is in both of these aspects, Sai the Gilui, and Sai the fact that you can be Makabel the Gilui. That's the pshat over here. The Friedrich Rebbe doesn't spell it out beferish, but that's how the Rebbe is learning this. And another point, it's mashma, the Lashon that the Rebbe said in the Mamer. So where do you see in the Lashon of the Friedrich Rebbe's Mamer both of these in Yonim regarding Biyah? Friedrich Rebbe doesn't spell this out. The Lashon that it says before, that there's Gilui and there's Hispashtos, Gilui and Hispashtos, these two Lashonis, even though they sound very similar, they're not exactly the same thing. Hispashtos means when you have a revelation that it comes from above to below, and there's no makabel for that Hispashtos. Not necessarily does Hispashtos mean that there's any makabel. When you use the term Gilui, the word Gilui, even though Gilui also means a revelation from above to below, that the source is being revealed, nevertheless, the word Gilui could also include in it that the full revelation is dafke when it's revealed to the extent that there's a makabel. If there's no makabel, so then lav dafke, then it's lacking in the revelation. It's not fully revealed. So these two lashonis that the Friedrich Rebbe uses, Gilui and Hispashtos, is referring to these two pratim. That's the chiddush in the worlds of Biyah. So, what the Rebbe says in the Mamer, what the Rebbe says in the Mamer is that Gilui is the Gabi de Makabel, real, true, full Gilui is the Gabi de Makabel, and Hispashtos is the Gilui from above without a Makabel. Right?
You're thinking of a word for Hispashtos.
Yes, you have a good word for Hispashtos?
Diffusion.
Huh?
Diffusion.
Diffusion?
Yeah, diffusion. No. What? Diffusion.
Okay.
Spreads out.
That's why it doesn't need fire, and that's
No.
why it kill it.
Yeah, because Gili means that it has to be in a skabel completely a revelation, right? Okay, yeah.
I don't know if this is it's not a good question, push it, but I'm just saying the idea of the goof and the shama. We said that's not a pell. That's the seal. It's like the
right,
goof.
Right.
Earlier when we learned, you said the idea of the mafi lasa.
Yeah.
That it's a pellet. It is a pellet. The goof and the shama reside in the goof.
Okay, we're going to come back to that. It is a good question, but we're going to come back to that later in the Mamer. He's going to talk about Atzilus. That it's Atzilus is compared to Guf and Neshama, but it's still not a Pella. The real Pella is Dafke the Levushim of Biyah. That's a detail that we'll come back to later in the Rebbe's Mamer. Okay, that's the what the Rebbe is saying over here. Now let's go back to what we learned yesterday in the Rebbe's Mamer. Show you. You've seen the Rebbe's Mamer. Ois Beis again. Sif Yud Gimel. Ois Beis. Page Yud Aleph in this contrast. I'm using the new contrast that they printed. And it's in Ois Beis. Sif Yud Gimel. Got it? Sif Yud Gimel Echad. Mamshach Levaya Inyan Noisav Ulamata Din Tachlis. Friedrich Rebbe continues and he explains another point in Lamata Din Tachlis. Loi Benigei Yalinyan HaSavos. And the theme in this ice is not to explain the world that was created, how you can see the Eibishter, the Ein Sof reflected in the Metzias of the world itself. Ela Benigei L'Hispashtus V'Gilu Yorein Sof. Rather, we're speaking about Yorein Sof itself, its Hispashtus and Gilu. The Lashon that we just read, I'm going to go through this quickly. Mash'oim ulamata din tachlis koi ala gilu v'hispashtus b'pchinas ein sof ve'ein shir ubligul mamish ad lamata mata b'madregis hayes achrenis hayes tachtoines v'zeu eirin sof lamata din tachlis shehispashtus ha'oir b'pchinas ein sof ubligvul klal ad madrege hayes mata mata. So the Rebbe teaches what is Ad Kan L'Shainim. Is Lashon the Friedrich Rebbe's Mamer. So what is the Friedrich Rebbe saying? V'hainu, meaning she'ein hakavana rak sheyesh ribu yishtalshalos adein tachlis. He's not only saying that there's a ribu yishtalshalos, that the Eibush is nishtalshal in every single level adein tachlis, olechein nikra ein soif, and therefore it's called ein soif. Ela filik kifi shenimtza lemata adein tachlis, as he is found over there lemata adein tachlis. Sham gufe hu ba'ofen shel ein soif. There itself, he exists in a manner of Ein Sof. Now this lashon that the Rebbe says over here, Sham gufe hu ba'ofen shel Ein Sof, I'm not 100% sure what the Rebbe means, but it's possible that this over here is already the point that I said before, that when Ein Sof is mispashet, on every level there are two pratim. The prat that Ein Sof is begilui, and the prat that Ein Sof is the mekabel, the fact that the world is mekabel this Ein Sof, not just the gili of it, but also sham guf hu ba'ofen shel ein sof. In what is expressed the fact that sham guf hu ba'ofen shel ein sof? The fact that the world itself is mekabel this kayach of ein sof. That you look at the world, you'll see an inyan of ein sof. Maybe. Okay, let's go weiter. Mamshech b'hamaymer. The Friedrich Rebbe continues and says, "Shahashvach sha'ayimrim al oir ein sof sheyachalove behispashtus v'gilui." So here the Rebbe divides it into two different inyanim. That there's the shvach when you praise the Eibishter, so the praise includes both hispashtus and gilui. Hainu loy rak hispashtus. It's not only hispashtus, which is not such a big chiddush, but elegam gilui. But it's also a gilui revelation. Lamata mata adin tachlis. Interesting thing is the Rebbe is saying that Gilui is a bigger chiddush than Espashtos. In the actual lashon of the Friedrich Rebbe's Mamer, he says Espashtos, the lashon that we just learned. What does it say first? It says first Gilui and then Espashtos, right? Koi ala Gilui ve'o Espashtos. So first he uses the term Gilui, which is the bigger chiddush, and then he adds the term Espashtos. The Rebbe is sort of switching it around. Spashtos, not only is Spashtos, but even Gilui. Okay, so even though the Friedrich Rebbe is using both Lashonis, and there's a reason he's using both Lashonis, because they don't mean the exact same thing, but the Rebbe is being mechadish that really, Bechlalos are the same thing. The Friedrich Rebbe is using them together as one Indian, but he's saying both Lashonis to tell you this point that Spashtos is one concept and Gilui is another concept. What's the difference between Gilui and Spashtos? So the difference is that, again, hispashtus means the revelation that comes from above, without anyone to be makabel. You don't have, not that the mitzias of the world is makabel, but gilui means the fullness of a gilui is when there's a makabel, when the makabel accepts it. That's the two inyanim that I was saying here.
That's why gilui has to come later.
Yeah, should, correct. But like I pointed out, the Friedrich Rebbe in the Maimah says gilui first.
Right.
It's interesting. Right. I don't know. Yeah. Gam Gilui. Over here, it's interesting in the Lashon, whoever wrote this Mamer didn't spell it out, but I heard the tape, and the Rebbe says the Mamer, the Rebbe says beferish, that the Friedrich Rebbe says in the Mamer, Shnei Inyanim. The Rebbe says those words, that this is Shnei Inyanim. What's the Shnei Inyanim the Rebbe is speaking about? These two things of Espashtus and Gilui. So here it doesn't say the word Shnei Inyanim, but that's what the Rebbe said. It's these two things. Gam Gilui lemata mata adein tachlis. So now the Friedrich Rebbe continues and explains, so what's this chiddush of mata mata? Doesn't refer to the Olam Ein Sof afil b'Olam Atzilos, or even not in the world of Atzilos. The af al pisha be'erech Oyer Ein Sof, because even though those worlds be'erech to Oyer Ein Sof harei gam Olam Ein Sof, they're also referred to b'shem Olamis. Okay, this is, but we'll learn more about this in the Hemshech of the Eis later. So, l'chayre, there may be room to say that there's a chiddush, that there is a shtickle pella, that the Eibishter is Nizgala there. It says, no, that's not a pella. We can't say that when we praise the Eibishter that is Lamata Adin Tachlis, Koyal Elam Ein Sof Elam Atzilos, that it refers to Ein Sof and Elam Atzilos. So it's interesting, if you just think about this simply, I'll tell you why you can't say it goes in Elam Ein Sof and Elam Atzilos. because it's not lamata adin tachlis. There's other worlds that are lower than them. Pashut. How could you say that's the shvach of lamata adin tachlis?
Because in Tanya.
Tachton shein tach lamata in Mamer refers to the lower olamis.
Because there's another olam after that.
Hayol v'lehem yiridim ma'arpanim yizbarach. Okay, that's when you get to the kavanas abriya, right? So, okay, the Alter Rebbe says, can't say kavanas abriya is an olamis al yainim, hayol v'lehem yiridim. Okay, but here, pashut, you can't say that it's in olamis al yainim because it's not lamata adin tachlis. There's lower worlds. But that's not what the Friedrich Rebbe is saying. Forget about the of lamata adin tachlis. If you want to say that there's a chiddush in the Gilui of Ein Sof, that Ein Sof could be nizgala in a place which is far from him, far from who he is, in a place which is foreign to his existence. And he comes there also. He can penetrate every level, he can reach there as well. Is that concept a chiddush in Eilam Misal Yainim, whether in Eilam Misal Ein Sof and Eilam Atzilus? True, in Eilam Biyah, he can also come there. And obviously when it says Lamata Adin Tachlis, it refers even to the lower Eilamis. But just like in the lower Eilamis, they're called Mata, and there's a Chiddush in the fact that Eibush is there, can you say that in Eilamis Al Yainim there's also a Chiddush? On that, the Friedrich Rebbe says, no, you can't say. This Chiddush that there is regarding Eilamis Biyah is not considered to be a Pella and Eilamis Al Yainim, whether in Eilam Ein Sof and Eilam Atzilus. And here the Friedrich Rebbe spells out the two details that we just learned. The Hine Eilamis Ein Sof Shalifnei Atzimtzum V'Eilam Atzilus the Mamer ha'Eir Ein Sof begiloi harehem kelim la'Eir Ein Sof. So they are worlds that are kelim for Ein Sof. When the Friedrich Rebbe uses this lashon kelim la'Eir Ein Sof, so what does it mean kelim? So this lashon of kelim, does it go on Atzilus or does it go on also on Eilam Ein Sof? L'chayre goes on both. L'chayre when the Friedrich Rebbe says harehem goes on both. Sai Eilam Ein Sof and Sai Eilam Atzilus are kelim. But then right afterwards, the Friedrich Rebbe says Lihiyos the gam hakelim harehem elokos mamish. That lashon l'chayre only goes on Atzilus. In Eilam Ein Sof there's no mitzias of kelim. Only in Eilam Atzilus is there a mitzias of kelim. V'im kain, so the Friedrich Rebbe says 2 points. Ein pele klal da Ein Sof mer sham begilui. So there's no pele that the Eibush is revealed there. V'chein ein pele ma shehem yecholim lekabel Ein Sof agoli. And it's also not a pele that they're able to be mekabel this year. V'hainu she'ein ze pele she'Ein Sof. Here the Rebbe spells out these two lashonos. Ein ze pele she'Ein Sof yachol lehispashit sham. The lashon that the Friedrich Rebbe says that Ein Sof is begiloi, that's related to the term hispashtus. Va'afile ein ze pele she'Ein Sof yachol sham begiloi, that's related to this, that Ein Sof is not stam begiloi, but there's a makabel. Like I explained before what the real concept of makabel means. Masha'en ken ba'olam biyah, and this is not so in olam biyah. What's the masha'en ken ba'olam biyah? That in olam biyah the chiddush is in both aspects. Side the fact that Eibush could be nizgala and biyah, and side the fact that olam biyah is a keli to be makabel this Ein Sof, which is a huge chiddush in olam biyah. That's like a huge pella. Okay, that's the pshat over here. Okay, so but there's still two things. I'm going to leave you off with two questions. There's still two things that have to be explained. Number one, what does this mean, Taka, that Eilam Biyah is a keli to be makabel Ein Sof? How is Eilam Biyah a keli to be makabel Ein Sof? In what way is it a keli? Besides that, the question is, the Rebbe here is explaining, we're speaking about the shvach of Ein Sof. We're speaking about the praise of how great the Gilui of the Eibishter is. What does it mean that the shvach of the shvach of the Ein Sof includes also the fact that the world is a keli to be makabel. Whether the world is a keli, whether the world is not a keli, it doesn't make a difference against the shvach of Ein Sof itself. The Eibishter is bli gvul, and therefore he could be mayor, he can extend and be, nothing could stop the Eibishter. Nothing holds him back, and he could be mayor wherever he wants. Adarab, in a way you could say, the less of a keli it is, the more of a shvach it is. The Eibishter can come to a place which is not a keli at all. I keep on saying the mashal. The Eibishter can come to a place, the Eibishter can make the table understand. The Eibishter can be mizgala anywhere. Whether the place where he comes into is a keli or is not a keli, that's already a discussion regarding the mitzias of that world. That's not negated to the shvach of the Ein Sof. It's two different inyanim. Here we're talking about the shvach of Ein Sof. And that shvach includes both pratim. Sai, the revelation, and sai, the fact that the world is a keli for it. Why is that a chelik of the shvach? I said a certain point yesterday, but it's not really accurate. I have to try to explain it in Mitzvah Shem.
Huh? Okay.
But whether
That's how we set it up.
whether the world is a keli, whether the world is not a keli, it doesn't make a difference. L'gabe the shvach of Ein Sof. If I have a candle and the candle extends and the light of it goes into every single place, so the place, the mokim where the light extends to, is light. The mokim is not light. The mokim is mokim. It's a place.
If you have a barrel of
So
wine-
then, if I'm going to tell you that the mokim itself becomes a mitzias of air. Okay, so that's some kind of miraculous transformation regarding the mitzias of the mokim itself. It has nothing to do with the light. If I have this light shining here, whether this table becomes a mitzias of light, whether it doesn't, l'chayr, it's not negate to the light itself. If I'm going to be mishabech this time, if it's a limited light, it'll extend in one room. If it's a stronger light, it'll extend into two rooms. If it's more unlimited, it'll extend very far. Okay, say that. But that whether the mokim is a keli to be makabel or not, it doesn't make any difference. The gabe the koyach of this gilui, l'chayr.
If you have a barrel of wine and you want to enjoy the wine, and you want to put in a little culture, you're not gonna get the benefit of the barrel.
So that's going to get to the person that's drinking. That's all. But it's not. It doesn't tell you anything about the quality of the wine itself, whether it's a kelishka, whether it's a large glass. Okay, let's leave it at this. Okay, so we're learning the Mamer of Ligani Tavshin Chav Gimel. As I mentioned yesterday, the last few days, the Rebbe is talking about two different inyanim that you have regarding Ein Sof, or the Rebbe calls it the shvach of Ein Sof. If you want to praise the greatness of Ein Sof, one is the fact that there's a gilui, that the Eibush is revealed in every place, he's present in every place, comes on every level. But then the Rebbe says a second point, that the Kabbalah, there's a keli, the Eibush is received in every place, which is a much bigger chiddush. And the point is that the Rebbe emphasizes both of these points is the praise of the Eibishter. Not only the fact that the Eibishter is present in every place is his praise, that he comes and extends and is present in every single level, but also the fact that that place itself, the level, that world, whatever world it is able to receive him, that's his praise, which is a big chiddush. I mentioned already a few times the mashal of a Rav and a Talmud, that the fact that a Rav teaches a Talmud and the Talmud then is able to be mechadish on his own, so those are the chidushim of the Talmud. That's him already. That comes mumatul amayla. That comes from below. That's not the hashpah of the Rav. If the Rav is teaching, if you have any level of revelation, whether it's a Rav and a Talmud, or you have the revelation of the Eira Shemesh, whatever revelation you have, the way the recipient receives it, the fact that it becomes his, the fact that he from below, with his nature, with his being, accepts it, that's already a different point. That doesn't relate to the revelation from above. Over here in the Mamer, the Rebbe says this is part of the shvach of Ein Sof. So there's another Mamer here. This is Va'avayam Machasa Tovshin Lamed Zayin in Sif Hey, where the Rebbe explains this in you. Take a look in Sif Hey. Hinei ha'ilui shebibirur v'haloas atachten. What advantage is there when you can refine and elevate the mitzias of the world below? That's what this Mamer is speaking about. In other words, here you see this point. We're not talking about a revelation that comes from above to below, revelation of godliness in a place. Eibush can reach into the lowest place, but the actual mitzias and the condition of that place itself, mitzad atzmai, remains unchanged. No, we're talking about elevating the mitzias of the tachten. So move on Mamer, the Mamer that the Rebbe speaks about here, the Bramaskel Zocher Anal, this is a Mamer the Rebbe Rashab, Zocher Tofresh Ein Ches, Sheyesh Bezev Beis Inyanim. There are 2 points here. And the first point is what's negayah to the pshat over here, the Mamer of Basi Ligani. Maybe. Aleph, the first point is the fact that the Tachten himself gets elevated, that he with his nature gets changed, that's not a separate thing. It's not separate of the Hamshacha, but this actually is relevant to the Hamshacha itself. In other words, when is the Hamshacha itself b'shleimos? Only if the Tachtain, where the Hamshacha is reaching to, is getting elevated. This point is explained there in the Mamer of Zocher So he says there, the Kemoi Shebederech Kepshutai. Just like it is with a pathway. The Mamer there speaks about the Lashon Derech, that comes from the Lashon Derech Havaya, Yisharim Darkei Havaya. So what's a Derech made for? Be'im, so you have a route, a road, or a way that's made to go from one place, from one city to the next. Be'im if that way that you're traveling is only one way, and you can't return on that same way, so then it's not called a derech. The meaning of a derech in the real sense is if you have a route that you can go from one city to another, but it's only one way, can't come back in that way, so it's not a real derech. Real derech means that you can go back and forth, both directions. And the Rebbe adds what this means is Loi rak legabe hamokim sheba l'sham. It's not only that it's not a derech for the place that you just arrived to, elagam legabe hamokim shehalach misham. But it's not even considered to be a derech for the place that you just left. In other words, if you have point A, point B, derech, you're traveling from one place to the next. So if it's a one-way derech that you can go from point A to point B, but you can't return from point B back to point A, so you may think, okay, so it's a one-way road. For point A, there is a derech. You can get out of this city to go to point B. From point B, you can't get back to point A, so it's not a derech for point B, but for point A, it is a derech. But the Rebbe says it's not so. A derech means that it's in Lashon Kodesh, the real meaning of the idea of a derech is that you can go both ways. And if you can't return, not only is it not a derech for the place that you arrived to, because you can't go back, but even for the place that you're leaving to go, the fact that I will not be able to come back, so it's not a real derech. Now, that's all a mashal in the concept of a derech. How does that apply to the point that we're talking about over here? When you speak about revelation of godliness, there's also, is it a one-way revelation or is it a two-way revelation? One-way revelation means malmayla lamata, that the Eibishter is powerful, the Eibishter is bligvul, and he extends and reveals himself further and further, lower and lower. But that's all from above to below. That's one way. Then there's the mulmata lamayla, the elevation from below to above. That the mitzias of the world itself, the nature of the world itself, changes. Not just that the revelation comes from above, but the actual nature, the halos atachten. That's the opposite derech. So if you're lacking, if you have only one and not the other, let's say you only have the hamshacha without the halah, or you have the halah without the hamshacha. So the hamshacha, the hamshacha is b'shleimus without the halah. The halah is b'shleimus without the hamshacha. Just like you may think when it comes to a derech. If you have a one-way road, so whichever way that road is going to, so it's b'shleimus for that city that you can leave. But the city that you arrive to, it's not b'shleimus. So the Rebbe says, no, but it's not so. The kishelo yeshnoi ha'aliyah sha'tachten eine keli la'amshacha, when you don't have the elevation from below, that the tachten does not become a keli, ein amshacha amitis. The amshacha from above to below is also not real. It's not truthful. Not complete. It's incomplete.
I think you made the quagmire even more muddy. Why not?
Oh, that's the question. Here comes the answer. So the question is, why not? If it's a one-way road, and in that way you can go 100%, nobody's stopping you in that direction to go. And so just like Begashmi, it's the same thing also Beruchni is. The Eibishter could be revealed Ein Sof. Nothing can stop him. Whether the world is a Keli, whether the world is not a Keli, that's relevant to the shleimus of the hamshacha, the koyach of the Eibishter to come down. Whether the mitzias of the world changes or not, that doesn't matter. But the Rebbe says it's not so. If the world below is not getting affected in such a way that it pasha gets elevated, so then eina hamshacha amitis. It's not a real hamshacha. So this is, in other words, it's a it reflects on the nature of the hamshacha as well. Why is that? So the Rebbe gives a few words to explain this. So the Rebbe says the explanation here is as follows: what's the real idea? And the shleimus, when you have it completely, a hamshacha that's the shleimus, she'ein ba'agbala, that has no limitation whatsoever. And this lashon she'ein ba'agbala is not the usual idea of ein ba'agbala. The usual idea of ein ba'agbala is that nothing stops the Eibishter from going any place, and it can be nimshach wherever it is, but the ein ba'agbala is much stronger, as we'll see in a moment. So what's the emes idea and the shleimustig idea of a hamshacha? Hiduloi rak shehin himshaches b'chol makom. Not only the Eibishter is nimshach into every single place, gam b'makom achi tachten, including the fact that the Eibishter is unlimited. So therefore, he could be nimshach further and further, and even to the lowest place, which is not a keli for him, that does not recognize him, and it's so to speak distant from him, far into godliness, and the Eibishter could be there as well. That's all not enough. That's all one point. Ela rather even more, shehi nimshaches v'choideres b'chol chelkei amokim, but that the Eibishter is nimshach and he penetrates in all aspects of that place, ache misatzemesimai. So much so that the hamshacha from above becomes one with the place that it's nimshach to. And shazeh, his atzmos, this idea here, that the hamshacha from above becomes completely one with the place that it's nimshach to, hu dafke kashar tachten hu keli la gili. That's only if the tachten itself becomes a keli to the gili. As long as you have just a hamshacha, the gili elokus mumayla lamata, but the metzias of the tachten itself is not elevated in this gili. The metzias of the tachten itself doesn't relate to this gili. In other words, the nature of the tachten, what it is mitzad itself, is not connected to this gili. So that means that the hamshacha is lacking. The hamshacha is not b'shleimus. The hamshacha is still defined. That's what it means. The hamshacha is still defined in the world of gili elokus, where there is revelation. So because revelation is godliness, so therefore that revelation goes further and further and further. What's the tachten? The tachten is not godliness. The tachten is a mitzias that is fakert from godliness. It doesn't recognize godliness. The mitzias of the world. Let's say in the world you have a mitzias of a stone, of something which is a chaymer. It doesn't have any keli. It can't accept godliness. The fact that the mitzias of the world cannot accept this godliness. So what does that mean? That sof there is a specific matziv, there's a specific place where godliness could be present there. But then, the moment you go out of that definition of hamshacha, out of that matziv of hamshacha, which is a revelation of godliness, so then the tachten itself, over there, in the mitzias of the tachten itself, godliness cannot be accepted there. Why not? Because the mitzias of the world is a stira telokos. The mitzias of the world doesn't recognize godliness. So what that really means is that the hamshacha mulmaila is defined, has a certain limitation to it. It's totally in the fact it has to have certain conditions. As long as you're talking about the fact that the Eibishter, he is bli gvul and he could be megala himself, so therefore the Eibishter could push away anything and he doesn't pay attention to what's going on. He could be megala himself, but that's all a gilui of a lakus. What's mitzad and mitzias of the tachten itself? The mitzias of the tachten itself can't accept it. So that shows on the fact that the hamshacha is defined. When the hamshacha comes down into the world, and it can be present even in the mitzias of the world itself, which is not godliness, it could be connected and it could enter and penetrate even into a mitzias which is not the condition or the revelation of godliness. So what does that mean? That the hamshacha is completely undefined. The hamshacha is so real, so powerful, that it's the truth of the Eibishter that will be expressed in everything, in every place. It's the truth of the Eibishter that will be expressed in a place of godliness. It's the truth of the Eibishter that will be expressed in the mitzias of the Welt as well. It will be expressed in every aspect. The halah mulmata, the fact that the mitzias of the world itself is able to elevate, is a deeper expression of the truth of the Eibishter.
Does this relate to what we say Ein Sof?
This is the idea of Ein Sof, yeah, l'chayra. Just a second. Let's see another few words over here in the Lashon of the Mamer. The Hagam, the Rabbi adds and clarifies, the Hagam shemitzad l'mayla, the Eibishter mitzad l'mayla, ef sheli esam shachad gam betachten she'ena keli. So the Eibishter is able to reveal himself in every single place. He's able to reveal himself in a tachten, even if the tachten is not a keli, still the Eibishter is able to reveal himself there. That's the Eibishter's koyach. He's unlimited. And the Rabbi adds even more than this. Who can say to the Eibishter what to do? The Eibishter is completely unlimited. So when the Rabbi says, what that means is the Eibishter is able to come down. And he's able to come down completely. He's able to come down in such a way that he'll enter b'pnimius. The Gilei Elokus is bli gvul. but the Eibishter has no limitation whatsoever. So that that revelation that's bli gvul, mi yoim eloi matasa, the Eibishter could go down lower and lower and lower, and not only to shine b'derech makif, like the sun, which is unlimited and therefore it doesn't penetrate the pnimius, the mitzias of the world. Mi yoim eloi matasa, the Eibishter could shine further and further and lower and completely. But still, there's something lacking here. But nevertheless, mitzad, the nature of the tachton itself. If you're gonna have a conversation with the mitzias of the tachton itself and ask him, "Who are you? You're Getlichkeit?" Say, "Me? I'm a mitzias of a tachton. I don't express godliness. I don't agree to this godliness. The Eibishter is here. He overwhelms. He enters. But it's a koyach mol mailo that's present in me. But who am I? What's my mitzias? My mitzias is me, nature of the world, that's separated from Malakos. So if so, he himself is not a keli that's fitting for this amshacha. That's not what describes his nature. So he's not unified with his revelation. So therefore it's lacking in the amshacha as well. It's not only that it's lacking in him as a recipient, that he, in his world, is not connected to this, that he, with his opinion, with his own understanding, he does not connect to this. The Hamshach is b'shleimus. But it's the tachton that's lacking in his accepting this Hamshach, in his nature, it's more than that. The Rebbe says, Choseh gam ba'hamshacha, there's something lacking in the Hamshacha as well. Because sof, the greatest level of revelation that you have from above, so, miyoy maloi matasa, that's all the Eibishter. The Eibishter is powerful and unlimited, and therefore he can be nimshach momayla lamata. But then there's a deeper koyach, there's a deeper revelation, a deeper aspect of the Hamshacha. I mean, this itself that the Rebbe is saying here, that the tachten, that in order for the Hamshacha to be complete and full and real, so it has to penetrate the mitzias of the tachten itself. Where does that come from? It also comes from Maila, but it comes from a deeper place. It comes from a place that's completely undefined. When you reach from a level that's totally undefined, so then that gilui will be to such an extent that even the tachten himself will scream and say, yeah, me from my nature, I also agree to this. That's how powerful the Hamshacha is. Right? Sometimes you have a person that he's extremely powerful and very, 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 very intelligent, and he's able to convince all kinds of people of all kinds of things. He's able to talk and explain and even scream and shout, and people will follow him. He's a tremendous leader. But what's with the mitzias of the people themselves that are following him? Sof, it's his opinion that's in their head, and they're following him. So you can't really relate it to them. But then there's something that's even deeper. You have a person that has the ability to reveal a concept or to be mashpia on people in such a kind of a way that it actually penetrates in them to the point that the people themselves that are listening to him can say with their own nature, yet we feel that this is taka the way it is. It's something much deeper. It comes from a much deeper place. In other places, the Rebbe brings the lashon of one of the Rishonim, the Ralbag. The Ralbag said that when you have an emes that's revealed, so then it's not totally in any particular condition. The real truth is maskim atzmoi mikol tzad. That was his lashon. When you have real truth that's revealed is not truth that's conditional to any situation. That in this situation it's true, in a different situation it's not true. That means that it's not real. Anytime you have a gilui that's defined, that in one world that gilui is oisgehalten, will be. You come to a different level, over there it doesn't recognize it, over there it doesn't accept it, over there it rejects it. What does that mean? It's not the ultimate truth. The ultimate truth, whether you're in a condition where godly revelation is present, whether you are in a mitzias of a tachten that does not naturally recognize it, but the emes truth of the Eibishter himself is not totally in any matzav. In whichever tzad, wherever you'll go, whatever situation you'll be in, the truth of the Eibishter will emerge, will come out from there. So over here as well, you have the regular concept of Hamshacha. The regular concept, the koyach of miyoy maloi matasa, the regular usual idea of the koyach of bli gvul of the Eibishter, that he can be nimshach lower and lower, and he comes down into the world, and he's present in every level. The gili, the revelation of the Eibishter, or the way that Rabbi calls it here in the Basi Ligani Mamer, the hispashtus. The Eibishter is mispashit further and further, then you have the fact that the world could be mekabel the giloi. So what the Rebbe is saying over here is that this inyan that the Eibishter could be niskabel in the world, that's the shleimus of the Eibishter's hamshacha. The lashon that the Mamer uses over here is amittis inyan of shleimus hamshacha. If you want to look at this from a deeper place, once the Eibishter is nimshach further and further, there's nothing lacking. Whether the world accepts him or not, that's already a different point. That's just talking about the metzius of the world. So the Rebbe says no. The emes is that this gufa, if it would be something that's so truthful, the emes is not totally in any level, any condition. The emes has to come out, has to emerge from everywhere. Al derech, just the mashal, I don't know if it's the same concept. Al derech, it says by Matan Torah that when the Eibishter said, "Anochi avaya lekecha," so it wasn't only the voice of the Eibishter coming from Mulmaila, the Eibishter said, but it came from Kol Ruchas Ha'olam. You heard the voice of Anochi avaya lekecha emerging or emanating from the entire world. What does that mean? What's the chiddush of that? It's not stam a randomness that the Eibishter's voice is coming from all four sides of the world. What it's saying is that the Gilui of Matan Torah was so powerful that it came from every side. When the emes is revealed, so then even the Teva Olam itself said Anochi Avaya Lekecha, not just Mulmaila Lamata, but Mulmata Lamaila as well. And again, the Mulmata Lamaila is the indication that Amshach is b'shleimus, that it's a true fullness of the emes of the Eibishter that's revealed. Okay, that's so possibly that's the pshat over here in the Mamer Basi Ligani that we're learning when the Rebbe is talking about the Gilui of Oyer Ein Sof, and the Rebbe says these two inyanim. So the inyan of the Kabbalah Sagilui is not just a mile about the metzius of the world. In Ois Yud Beis, the Basi Ligani that we learned last year. So there the Rebbe spoke about the fact that Morabu Masecha, Magodlu Masecha. There the Rebbe was talking about the hisbainanos a person could look and see in the metzius of the world, that if you pay attention close, you'll see a koyach of Ein Sof in the world. Look at the offer, look at the koyach of Tzemeach, that there is in soil, the lowest element of the world, you'll see that there's a koyach of Ein Sof in the soil of the world. That's all a discussion when you get to how we define the metzius of the world. Look closely, you'll find koyach Ein Sof there. And over here the Rebbe is saying, that teva gufa that the world expresses, that it accepts and it expresses the koyach of Ein Sof, that is also a shleimus of the Gilui of the Eibishter. It's all a shleimus of the shvach. Rabbi uses the term shvach, to praise. If you want to define the true praise of the Eibishter, the true praise is not the fact that the Eibishter could perform miracles and shatter existence and break and overwhelm and reveal himself, not paying attention to the gedarim of anything. Because when the Eibishter reveals himself, so then what does that mean? What if you come into the place of the world where there are the rules of nature? There it's a contradiction to his existence. Over there he can't go. But over here we're saying that no, that the Eibishter is fully present. Like the Rebbe says in Lashon, he comes into Chideres b'chol chelkei hamokim ashmas hatzemes imay. That when you have something that's so emesdik, so then it comes into every single thing. That even Mulmata Lamaila, the nature of the world itself, will scream this truth. How is the nature of the world screaming this truth? Because when the real truth is revealed, the nature of the world itself says it. That's in the code there. Okay. So now you know why I took out this Mamer.
That's also the pshat in the word shvach.
Shvach, the shvach of Eibishter, correct. We just,
The
this
question
is,
is why I said that.
yeah.
I'm not sure what the question is, but I don't know how to answer because the Rebbe said it many times regarding the Alter Rebbe, Tanya, that he said it in his name because it became part of him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the same idea.
So it's not that it was Milamayla. It was Avodas HaTachtonim.
Correct.
And now you're not giving any
credibility
to
the Tachton. Oh, there's another Inyan. Okay, I'm not going to continue now. This there is another point to it, which continue. There is another point of the mile of the Tachton. It's another point. But over here, now we're talking about the mile of the Gilui. Hamshacham Mile. Yeah.